Hello, this is Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur. Most people know me because I spent over 12 years in professional baseball, coaching for the Tigers, Indians, and Angels, and went to the World Series 3 times. I apologize for our delay. We had a little technical glitch. Today, I'm with my good friend, Jim Ayres. Jim, say hello.
Hey, hello everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, super excited about having everybody involved and getting on the show, having you here. It's so fun. Um, the thing we want to talk a little bit, I want to give you a little bit of background on Jim. Before I do, Jim, tell people where they can find you.
You can certainly find me on LinkedIn, Jim Ayres, Ayres, and certainly you can find me on Facebook as well.
Great, perfect. So let me do a little intro and background on you, Jim. Pretty impressive, by the way, man. Like 41 plus years with Amway.
Right.
Uh, Business operations, running business operations for all of Amway North America with a volume exceeding $1 billion. We came together because I was introduced to you as this high level business executive from a good friend of ours, and because you were a former player at Grand Valley State University as a football player.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And of course, very philanthropic, involved with the U.S. Dream Academy, the Kinsler Foundation, the Literary Center for West Michigan, where you live in the West Michigan area. And of course, give us your personal background too. Married, all that good stuff?
Yeah. Married to love my life, Nancy. Hopefully she's tuning in right now and she'll give me a critique after all this for sure. We've got a wonderful family. Daughter, son, daughter-in-law, and 3 grandkids. So and they're all local, and we've been able to see them quite a bit over the past year. We're very, very fortunate. Count our blessings.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. So, all right. So, let's talk a little bit about, I told you a little bit about the show. The show is Winners Find a Way.
Yeah.
And I'll ask the audience, have you ever faced stiff adversity, felt like the losses are mounting, and you need to find a better way? I think you came to the right place. We talk a lot about overcoming when you're stuck and the challenges you face when things get hard, and perseverance and the sacrifices you have to make along the way. And everyone who comes on has been through some really good ups for sure, but has probably had some pretty tough downs. And Jim, people from the outside seeing your quality of life, the way you manage yourself, you're, like you said, you're very blessed. They probably like, hey, this guy's never had to go through a hard time in his life, right? Like,
Yeah.
come on, right? So tell us why you come on the show first.
Well, I think it's a really important topic to talk about. It's because all of us face adversity, and especially at my point in life, one of my big missions is to just help other people, maybe through sharing some of the things that I've been through. And when you talk about adversity, um, I had a really great childhood, but also a very challenged childhood as well. My dad died when I was 9 unexpectedly.
Wow.
And, we went through a lot of trauma, lost our home. My mom was great. She did all she could. But I lost my home, moved into a really pretty rough neighborhood when I was 9 years old. Everything changed for me. It took me years to get over that. And, um, you know, you think about overcoming things. I was like the poster child probably for self-defeating behavior. I knew that I was smart. I had intellectual ability and everything, but I just didn't succeed in anything. I flunked out of high school. I had to go extra to get my diploma. I got an opportunity to go to Grand Valley State University and play football, and I blew that as well. End of the first year, I had a 0.8 GPA. They politely asked me to go someplace else, and literally ended up at a inner city gas station in Kalamazoo. Uh, and I can't make this stuff up. I got the job because they had been held up a week before or so, and one of their employees got shot. He lived. I got his job, and I was kind of a turning point for me of where I realized that I had to get it together. I just had to get it together. But, I just started applying myself. One of the miracles of my life is Grand Valley let me back in. I earned my scholarship back through effort. And, from the day I got back into school at GVSU, through my undergrad, through graduate school at Western Michigan University, and through an MBA program at Davenport, I never missed one class. I just showed up, paid attention, applied myself, and I was able to turn things around. And
Wow.
it's been far from an easy experience. It's been a learning experience every step of the way.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't think most people would look at you on the outside and go, "Oh, yeah, this is what that kind of life I've had." And for people that are listening to the show, if you have that kind of life, and I've seen people been involved with charity organizations. I was involved with Tony Dungy's All Pro Dad, and I remember going into some tough areas, and that was the thought. The thought was like, "Hey, this is what life is tough for me. Life is tough for everybody." And people are making poor choices, and because those who are caring for me or looking after me are making poor choices, well, I'm going to do that, of course, too. And I'm like, no, wait, like they made their choices, they're adults, but you're going to get your chance, and you don't have to make the same choices, right? So let's talk about. So I love this quote: "Winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win." Right? The Four Disciplines of Execution by McChesney and our good friends out at the leadership place, Covey Leadership.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. When you were up against it, losing, found a way to come back and win, down but not out. Like, tell me a little bit about where you were then and what kind of took you over that. And you can share a different story too about business if you'd rather, and either way.
I'm going to tell you a story that literally of a day that changed my life in eighth grade, if you can imagine that. It's a lesson that I learned back then. It took me a while to absorb it, but this is the day. I was on a junior high football team. Look, I'm old. This was a long time ago. I played with a helmet. A face mask was one bar across your face. That was it. Right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
And we were practicing on
and you weren't the kicker. Is that what you're saying?
I wasn't a kicker. I was a running back at that point, but I was on the third string running back, right? And we're practicing on a field that didn't have a lot of grass, had a lot of dirt and a lot of gravel. And we're in practice, third stringers going against the starting defense.
Of course.
And I just remember dive play, off tackle or whatever. I get the ball, and as I'm running into the line, my third string offensive line had pretty much dissolved. And there's these two big giant starting defensive tackles that I run into them like a wall. And literally, man, I'll never forget it. They kind of picked me up and face planted me for the tackle and smashed my face into the gravel. And when I got up, my face mask was down here. It collapsed down to my chest.
Right.
My nose is bloody, my mouth's bloody. I'm picking gravel out of my face. And at that moment, and I don't know how to explain this, it's the fight or flight response.
Yes.
I became enraged. I don't know how else to explain it. I'll never forget it. Not that I wanted to start a fight with those guys or anything, but it's just something came inside of me. I'm not going to take this. And I remember going back into the huddle with my third string buddies and just, yelling and pumping them up and saying, we're not going to take that. And just really, really kind of fanatical. And I just did it over and over, every play in practice, over and over again. And the next day I did it again. And the next day I did it again. And guess what? In 2 weeks, I was starting tight end. And what I realized in hindsight is through my fanatical effort and attitude, I made them find a way to get me on the field, right? Didn't have all the talent in the world, but that's where I first learned the lesson. And I said it took me a while to get over my self-defeating behavior and actualize all that. But I'll never forget that lesson of talent's important, but attitude trumps talent. If you got talent and don't have an attitude and the want to, right, to get it done, you're not going to win. And frankly, I don't want you on my team. And that was my big lesson, my first big lesson in turning it around and keeping going. The other thing that I think about too that sometimes is overlooked is, yeah, if you want to win, and especially in difficult situations, you first got to have the courage to try. And that means being willing to risk failure, being willing to risk losing, because in today's world, it's the way it is, man. You don't win all the time, and it's competitive. And whether it's sports or business or school or whatever it is, you got to have the courage to put yourself out there and understand that you may not win. But you can't win if you can't risk that. And I think that's a super important thing. A lot of people, when they face these difficulties that you're talking about, human nature is to kind of back off and
Mm-hmm.
kind of just step back because it seems
Yeah.
like the safe thing to do. And, you never grow that way and you never win that way either.
Well, I love that. I love that risk it all, right? It is courage for sure. And are you giving a shout out to the Canadians with your drink there? Or,
Oh, I
you know,
am.
like,
I had a team in Canada. They gave me this cup. I'm still, yeah,
okay, nice.
I'm
All
running
right.
the brand here.
So I love I love that risk it all. And I think as a coach, I just remember, and as a player too, right? It's a constant thing. Like when the big challenges come, that's when I'm on the edge of my seat to see who responds, right?
Yeah,
Like this is what I'm watching for. Hey, you just got bloodied nose. Are you going to quit or are you going to step up? Like that's what I'm looking for.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so many of us like, hey, I just want to take my ball and I want to go home, right? Like that hurts, and it's not easy to go. No, man, I'm committed. I'm all in. I'm coming back for more. I'm willing. I love that. I'm willing. So let's talk about. I mean, now I'll come back a little bit to football, but let's come back. Actually, let's stay with football. So you go to college and you start becoming this dependable, responsible leader. And you're playing with some pretty good players, and you're a good player, but there's some NFL destined players around you, right? And that may not be your destiny, as it turns out. It's not.
No
Turns out your
way.
destiny is an executive in a
Right.
high level corporation, a Fortune 200, and so. But what do you think that superpower is for you that separated you from others, that catapulted you to the 1% of top level executive? For some of them, maybe they catapulted to top level athlete, because you could share that story, right, about a person you're playing who catapults into that 1% NFL athlete. But what was the superpower for you?
There's so many things, so many components of it. It's kind of hard to separate one. But for me, I guess the biggest one is probably building on what I just said. It's just effort and attitude. One person that I've met in the last couple of years in my position, my work position, was a lot of coaches, and one that I really remember is Tim Lester, head coach at Western Michigan University football. I love the way he talks about this. He talks about um, what kind of person are you? Are you a have to or a want to?
Mm,
You have to get out of bed and go to practice, or you want to. You have to go to work, or you want to. You have to
mm,
study, or you want to. Which are you? And he's like, I want tos on my team, right? And
mm.
that's an inside kind of innate, not complicated, but really powerful attitude thing. And God, I'll tell you, ever since I heard him say that, I've told my wife Nancy about it, and I complain about doing the dishes or something. She's like, "Do you have to do the dishes, or do you want to do the dishes?"
Yeah,
You know,
why did I tell
she's
Nancy? Like, yeah, like, yeah. So I love that, and I love that about Wooden said something about that too, because when he talked about a team spirit, he talked about um when he originally set it out. I remember him talking about this, and he was saying, hey, a willingness to come alongside and work with others and have the right attitude. But he changed it because of that reason. Because that was kind of like a willingness. I have to. Like, I have to be a team guy, right? Like, no. I want an eagerness
Right.
to do it. So he changed from willing to eager, and I thought it was like it's the difference maker, because I think
Yeah.
it's what you just described, right?
Yeah.
It's a have to a hey, I want to.
Right. There's another thing to that too, and I think of it as a sense of urgency. Never to be comfortable. Always, and my sports exposure like taught me so much about you never get comfortable. You stop and you smell the roses and you enjoy life and you enjoy success and the accomplishments you make. But there's always another mountain. You get to the top of the mountain, there's another mountain in front of you, and you
Yeah.
never get comfortable. And you know, how did I get my scholarship back in college when I got back into school? I remember practice was at 5 o'clock. I was in the locker room at 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day, mentally preparing just like I would for a game for
Mm,
practice, right?
yeah.
And I want to be the first in line for everything. And I just had this sense to it's always been with me, even in doesn't matter what my position was or how far I went in my job, is that um, I got to outwork everybody because I'm not as talented as a whole bunch of other people. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to outwork people. And even when I was, I just retired at the end of the year from Amway, but when I was leading North America, most days I was the first one in the office, and I just the way I'm wired, I'm going to like give it absolutely fanatically everything that I can, and I think that sense of urgency for me helped me keep my edge, helped keep me from getting comfortable, and just keep pushing myself all the time, right?
Well, I think that's a great lesson for leaders because, I've talked to many executive teams, and I can tell you that there's a lot of C-suites that don't want to work for someone and work harder than that person. Right? Like, hey, they're the one with the big title, the bigger role, the bigger bonus. Everyone goes like, hey, I shouldn't be outworking the managing partner or the CEO or the director, right? Now, I can make an argument against it, but like you, I wasn't blessed with the same physical skills. We've met personally, obviously, so he knows I don't look like the rest of Major League Baseball players. So at 5'6", so it's I knew, man, if I was gonna make it, I've got to work. I've got to put my head down and show people a lot of different things because I don't pass the eye test, right? So I think that's what you said is something very peculiar to me because as a coach, I don't know how many times I've looked at behaviors of my athletes and of my directors and my business personnel that I'm working with and said, hey, everyone, you see how Ayres comes in 2 hours early? You see how he's ready? You see how he's mentally prepared? You see how he's physically prepared? You see how he's morally prepared for what's about to happen next? Like, I'll take 10 more just like him. Like, well, not the biggest, not the fastest. They don't, well, I'm not concerned. Like, if I have 10 people like that, like, we're all going to get it done. Like, it's going to happen. And I can't, and we've all said it. As coaches, we've all said it.
Yeah.
Wow, Johnson, I'll take 10 more just like her. She's so good. You can't say enough. And what's your take on that when you
Oh,
heard that from?
I totally agree. I mean, and we see it all around us. I mean, you can think of the greats like MJ. MJ couldn't jump the highest. He wasn't a
Right.
fat. He wasn't the best shooter. MJ was MJ because what was between his ears and what was in his chest. That was it. And you can see that. I mean, gosh, just recent example. Look at Tom Brady. That
Oh,
guy physically compared to other quarterbacks in the league,
yeah.
no way. But man,
It's not close.
not close. But he's got it in the chest and between the ears, and he outworks everybody. Right. And
Yeah.
and to me, like you said, there's a saying that is burned into my brain by my college football offensive line coach Bruce Zylstra. Um, and I hope I can use a little really mild swear word here because it's
Yeah,
for
sure.
effect.
So you're fine.
But he told us
We can edit
all
it out.
he he told us
That's good.
all the time as an offensive lineman, if you hit the wrong guy, knock him on his ass. if I heard that once, I heard it 500 times,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
what does that mean? Well, it means, look, and in any sport, and offensive line's no different. It's not simple. I mean, you're in the huddle, they call a play. You think, okay, this is what I got to do. You go up to the line of scrimmage, and while they're, before they snap the ball, the defense starts moving around. Now you got to figure out, okay, now who do I hit? And right when
Yes.
you figure that out, the quarterback calls an audible. I mean, right?
Yes.
It's easy to hit the wrong guy, right? And make a
Yeah.
mistake. It happens. And when that happens, bad things happen behind you.
Sure.
But the message in that is, look, I can teach you, I can coach you to hit the right guy, but I can't teach you to have effort, to have attitude,
Yeah.
right? I can't teach you that. You either got that in your chest or you don't. And to me, like when I was in any of my positions, but leading a big company, when I'm trying to hire somebody for any position, yeah, I'm looking for technical ability, for knowledge, and all that stuff. But what I'm really looking for is that I'm looking for that want to desire, that is an example for others, because that's the way you are, right? And
Mm.
I think you and I talked about this a little in the past of, it's not a make or break thing, but really, if I've got, three or four very equal candidates for a position, if I got one of them that was a captain of my high school volleyball team or something, like, I'm going for that person probably, because, man, that you've been through the crucible of challenge, all the challenges that come with athletics. I don't care what level it is,
Yeah.
and
No,
you're just made by that, right? It teaches you.
yeah, that is so good. That's so two things I get out of this. One is um that effort, like you're saying with it's infectious, right? Look at the temperature and the attitude of the Tampa Bay, campus because
Yeah,
of that guy's presence. Like we know he's good, but
yeah,
but it's not like he shows up and you're like, wow, I thought he'd look like something. Like no, no, no. But the attitude all of a sudden just takes people up a level, and that was so evident right at the end of the Super Bowl when people were like going, hey, I'm gonna tell my kids I played in the Super Bowl with this guy, right?
yeah,
Like, and it's like, yeah, you're pretty excited about the win too.
yeah.
Like,
Right,
and
right.
and so it's an interesting take on that. And then the other side of this hiring thing, of course, I love that, as a former athlete. But I think about that as a two sport Division I athlete. Like my time was not my own. Like I was absolutely balancing five, six, seven things a day just to make the day work. And prep started at 10 p.m. the night before, and it would never happen without preparation. So and things got dropped, and they were hard lessons that that usually cost a couple miles in training, like those hurtful lessons, right? And so you realize that, wow, you're not going to need to discipline these folks, right? Like they understand it, and they know the consequences when they don't make it. So I really appreciate that. And I'm sure there's a lot of fellow athletes out here that, hey, those are things, those are lessons for you to push inside of an opportunity with an organization, what they're looking for. Like, talk about those lessons learned and those experiences of self-discipline and accountability and responsibility, because I think they're gigantic.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that I think of in my career that you kind of mentioned there is, um, growing through seeking the tough challenges, right?
Mm,
That's how I got better. It started in college. When I was a freshman at GVSU, and we were in practice, and we're doing the practices where it's one-on-one offense and defense, between the guys
yeah,
and all that, and they're
yeah.
filming it. And if you get your butt kicked, hey, they're going to watch it tonight on film, go back and forth, right?
Yeah,
A lot of peer pressure and everything. And so I remember when I started there, the offensive guys line up here, the defensive guys line up there. I'm going, sixth guy in line. Like, he's easy, man. I want to be sixth in line. So I got
yeah,
that guy, right?
yeah.
What I realized was that wasn't getting me anywhere. And I realized that for me to get better, I changed my approach, and I started doing the opposite. The All American is fourth in line. the All-American senior, I'm going to get fourth in line and
Yeah.
take them on. And it's back to this courage, the courage to go after it and risk failure, but put yourself
Yeah.
out there. And kind of what I realized was, number one, it wasn't, if I got beat by the scrawny little guy, I really look like an idiot. If I get
Yeah.
beat by
There's
the
no win in that.
yeah,
there's no upside at all.
right. But if I get beat by the All American, well, they expected him to beat me. It's not so bad. But the other thing is, I realized I kept doing that. I started getting to where I could stalemate that guy, and then sometimes
Mm.
I started beating that guy and putting myself out there and being challenged by the hard thing. I started getting better. Right. I started getting
Yeah.
closer to my potential. Same thing in my career. I always in my career looked for opportunities that were big and scary and impactful that a lot of people didn't want to tackle. And I would be like, raise my hand, go sign me up, man. I'm going to make that happen. And
Yeah.
that was a big thing for me. In fact, one of the habits, I'm really big into habits for success. One of the habits that I work on all the time is I've tried to make it a habit in my career and in my life, actually, that when I'm faced with something that scares me, that makes my stomach turn, right? My human instinct is, I want to step back from that, right? And I
Yes.
try to make it a habit when I feel that way to recognize it and step towards it. And every big in my career, every big opportunity that I had scared the heck out of me. And I wasn't sure, I didn't know if I could do it, but I made myself step towards it, not away from it. And, I tell you that always worked out for me. It made me better, just like back to the football drills in college, and I just think that's if you ask me fundamental habits for success, that's one that I recommend to everybody.
Yeah. I love that. The courage to stand up and take that on. And I think one of those things about going up against the best, like the All-American senior, is the first thing you find out. There's not a lot of losing in this deal. One, you're not expected to win, right? Like
That's right.
two, you find out where you're at,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
go up head to head and I'm gonna find out how I measure up. And I've got video now to see what went wrong. Like, wow, I got to strengthen my lower half. I got to lower my center of gravity. You get all sorts of feedback. And
Right.
and if you win, it's instant respect with your peers,
Yeah.
right? Like, wow, that freshman or sophomore had the courage to take on the All-American. They have a great scene in Safety about that, the new movie from Disney about the kid. He's a freshman, he's going to take on the All-American, and the All-American senior's like, I slipped. Yeah, I love it, right? All right, so let's talk a little bit. Let's pivot here a little bit about what's the one value, action that you take, when you're really down and you got to turn things around, right? Like right now, do you have a couple go-to things that you come right back to, that you find yourself like, hey, I can regulate quickly with these foundational things and do like a self audit or something to that effect? Do you have something in that?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is, I don't care who you are. This gets down to simple basics for me, man. This is where it gets really simple. And that is in really simple terms, the territory, being a human being and being alive. Life throws a lot of crap at you. There are big storms coming all the time. We lose friends, we lose loved ones, bad things happen. I mean, it just happens. It's out of our control.
That's right.
And knowing those things, and if because it's super important that you understand that about yourself. It doesn't behaviors that kind of are under that I think about, how do I want to behave every day in every interaction I have? And that's humility. I don't have the answers. I need people. It is transparency. I tell you the truth 100% of the time, no exceptions, no BS. Fourth thing is that as a leader, 100% of the time, I give credit and take blame. Always give curve others. I'm here to help you be successful. It is not about me. Those are the principles that I get back to all the time, really on a daily, 25 years ago, probably. And I can't really remember why I did it, but 25 years ago, I sat down and put thought into it. I wrote a personal mission statement and I wrote a personal value. It is, but just this idea of who am I? What do I stand for? Who do I aspire to be? What kind of person do I want to be? That could come from your religion, or I don't care where it comes from, but you better have that if you're going to survive the traumas and the tough times that come along in life.
Mm, that's so good. Give me those three again on these three foundationals of leadership. Give that a scan. I love the Power Five. Give me the three again.
And
Yep.
there's never a wrong time to do the right thing.
Yep.
And that's a hard that stuff. Sounds kind of simple, but you can be and I was in situations at work where those were hard things to do. They weren't popular.
Yeah.
I might have been fluctuated from that, never diverted from that. And that defined me, I hope, to the people that were on my team that worked with me, that it builds trust and credibility. I want to follow people that believe in what they're doing, believe in themselves, and believe in me. That makes me want to follow people. And, I think that's what defines leadership, basically.
Awesome. If you have a question for chat, we happy to get to that. We'll come to that here in a little bit. But let's talk a little bit about the best way to win. We've had some interesting things. You had all this experience with all these coaches, and it's funny. We talked a little bit about delivering the national championship to a fellow coach of mine, Nick Saban, right? And what you spoke about, that's all of a sudden his mission was somewhat over, and now this trophy's that's just pageantry now for him because he's on to the next year, right? Not even, almost uninterested in the exchange, right?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, part of my job, it was one of the really cool things about my job for the past 7 years leading North America. We had a scholarship, or a sponsorship, with USA Today and the College Football Coaches Association. So the crystal ball, the iconic crystal ball trophy, was the Amway crystal ball. And yeah, when they started with the champion every year, what a kind of pinch yourself thing that I'm getting paid to do is I'm going to give the trophy to, Nick Saban or, Dabo Sweeney, whoever it was. And what a great experience. And they were all so different and so unique. I will tell you, Urban Meyer was one of my favorites. Class act, just a super classy guy.
Yes.
Love his philosophies. And in fact, Nancy and I, we did some work with him with Amway, and Nancy and I spent a couple hours with him and his wife a couple years ago, which was just a fantastic experience. Dabo Sweeney, right. When I took it to Alabama, Nick Saban he wasn't overly friendly or expressive, but what I realized, there were
other nine.
I mean, yeah. Clemson, when we went to Clemson, we're in the middle of the field to deliver this crystal ball trophy. There were 65,000 people in the stands for that.
Yeah.
Right? There were like 2,000 at Alabama, right? It was like,
right.
But the other thing I realized about Nick Saban was,
good. Did they let you come down the big hill? Did you do the run down the hill?
No, God, dude, I would have broke my leg. No, I'm not doing it.
That's classic. All right, so let me. This is great stuff. Tell them again, Jim, where they can find you before we go to some Q&A.
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Jim Ayres, Ayres on LinkedIn. And you can also look me up on Facebook Messenger.
And like our channel. And look for our upcoming ebook, The Pyramid of Leadershipity. And you can DM or email me as well. And let me know what you think. From 1% Leaders for you every episode. So let's, before we go to Q&A, what's your go-to?
Well, there's a bunch of them. If I had to pick one that I think about a lot, It's from a psychologist that I have read named Wayne Dyer. He's passed away now, but and he always emphasized even when things aren't easy and things are tough and things are a little difficult.
Right? And it's a lot, man. The world is just a much better place when I'm disciplined and I'm maintaining my discipline. I've got my self-control front and center. So got a
Yeah.
couple great questions for you. Um, had a lot of success, won a lot, in a lot of different ways. What's the best battle that you've conquered in your lifetime? What's the one that you've just overcome that you're most proud of?
Wow. Uh, that's a really, really good question. I wish I'd have given that ahead of time. I have to think about that.
So, yeah,
I've
so
had a
we
lot
can
of
come back to it
battles.
too. I got other ones here. Yeah.
I would say I get back to not necessarily the business challenges, but a couple of times in my career, I took over. I shouldn't say took over, I was put into leadership positions of areas of the company that were not doing well, underperforming.
Yes.
And
Turnaround.
yeah, it was, there were turnaround change leadership opportunities. And all of that, I would say virtually all of that came down to people and employees that were frustrated out of maybe 12%. And when I left last year, we were at 25%. We doubled our profitability, right? That's one measure, but that's not the measure that's really important to each other get better. We became better people, better parents.
And I encourage people because I did Ada, Michigan, and wow, I was taken back by the flags of all the countries represented. Actually, not all of them, because there's even more countries now than are listed. I think we ran out of flagpoles down in Ada.
Right.
So, but also the monuments of the leadership principles, the guiding five, values of the company. I just thought I was so impressed, etched in stone,
Yeah.
right? Which
Right.
really
Yeah.
which really I valued, right? Like we're not saying we're thinking about this. We just etched it in stone all over the place, right? Like this isn't like, whoa, we're back to the commandments. Like, hey, am I supposed to go run up and get some new tablets again? Like what happened, right? So like this is no joke. And
Yeah.
for those who are really want to see a company done right, there's a reason we're talking to a leader who helped run that company right. So they've had massive influence in West Michigan and worldwide, really.
Yeah.
But so
You know,
huge.
the cool thing too, real quickly, those values transcend geography and culture. I mean, I've had the opportunity in my career to lead big global teams. I ran a lot of research and development at one point, and I had a team of, gosh, I don't know, 400 and some employees in 43 countries, traveled all over the world all the time. All of those people from all those different cultures and backgrounds, we're all on the same platform about our values, about how it works, and about really the dedication that we had to building a great team and to helping other people be successful.
Mm.
That was just an amazing thing to be a part of and to see that it's just a human thing, right? It's a global thing. Pretty cool.
So here a good question. I have a good question about the various organizations and or coaches that helped you develop. How did they develop you? Like, how did you feel the influence of others around you coming up and that value that you took away? Because I mean, as a coach, I know that I've worked with some great ones, right? You and I both know, and I grab these pieces from them because I'm like, oh, I want to use that, and oh, that's so good, and we kind of grab these pieces of it. But how did you get developed? You felt like on your journey.
Yeah, it started with sports coaches, and they did change my life because, it was just my mom, and I was kind of an out of control, angry young guy, and coaches forced me to have discipline. They challenged me,
Mm,
taught me a lot of lessons about my college football coach, Jim Harkema, taught me lessons about uh, things like just organization and organizing myself. In the beginning of every season, he would say, I guarantee you that, because you got classes and everything, I guarantee you that
Yeah.
every practice will end on time. And he would give us an agenda before every practice with, for this 10 minutes, we do this, then we do this. And you got
Yep.
that and you saw it. And he ended every one on time. Now, if we were having a bad day, low energy, he'd blow the whistle. He's really mad. He screams, you guys aren't hustling. And he turned his watch back 20 minutes and then he extended practice, but we still ended on time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a classic. But coaches taught me so many lessons. But I got to tell you, I find coaching all over the place, and I'm still being coached now by people like you, other people I talk to, I learned from about how I could do things better. My wife Nancy is one of the best coaches I've ever had. She's
Mm,
had a huge impact on my career and my direction that I've gone by just talking stuff over with her and her coaching
yes.
me. And it's coaching is out there in a lot of places if you look for it. And
That's right.
I don't care who you are. I don't think we're ever at a point where we don't need coaching and it's not valuable. So I'm out there looking for it all the time.
That's a great partnership right there. That's awesome. Okay, let's end with that one thing. I want to talk about the one thing, the 6-inch jab step, right? Like I want to talk about the one thing because like everyone has that fundamental thing that like if you can't do this, you can't progress to that next level. And this is one of the challenges I think for most people in organizations, at
Yeah,
least that I see.
yeah. So
I see,
go
yeah,
ahead.
I see people that would really like to get to that next level, but have not mastered the fundamentals of their current level. And you and I both know we can't build up on that next level until the fundamentals are solid on that first level, right? So let's
Absolutely.
talk about that one thing. And you learned it as a pretty young guy,
Yeah,
right?
and this was college football again, but as an offensive lineman, and you have to understand, of course, football was different back then. When I played college football, everybody was running the veer offense. We might pass 8 times a game, 10 times, but it was all we were running.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of pulling and those kinds of things as an
Mm-hmm.
offensive lineman. But you know, uh, we started, I think, almost every practice all the time as an offensive line team with practicing. You're in your stance, and the first move you make is a 6-inch step with your foot, a 6-inch jab step, and we practiced that every day for the whole time I was there. And I remember thinking to myself, God, this is so stupid, right? I mean, it's a 6-inch step. I mean, what
Yeah.
seriously, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Um, and what I came to understand, and now in retrospect, I really understand it, is that that step was the foundational piece to pulling right or pulling left or
Yep.
dropping back into pass protecting or
Yep.
exploding off for a run block. That step was the fundamental foundation of all of it. And by just repeating such a simple thing over and over again, it became automatic. And you just did that foundational thing. Well, you didn't think about it. It just
Yes.
became automatic. And as I got into my business career, and I talked about this in employee meetings and stuff sometimes, because the principle of with all the swirl going on and everything, and all the it doesn't matter what the score of the game is or what's going on. I got to do that 6-inch jab step with excellence every single time. And so, I ask people, what's your 6-inch jab step? When you think about your job, your career, what you're doing, what's your 6-inch jab step? And just make sure that you're doing the fundamental things with excellence. Don't gloss over, I hate this saying of don't sweat the small stuff. I think that's crap. You got to do the small stuff with excellence, right? Do the small
Yeah.
stuff with excellence. That builds to the big stuff with excellence, right? You
Yes.
can't skip it. And that's just a lesson I learned from that I think about of fundamentals, man. Focus on the fundamentals. Don't be distracted by the swirl, and the big things will come to you. But you got to do the fundamentals first.
Well, I think for me, physically, there's a visual to that 6-inch jab step because there's a physiological component going on, which is if you take that step right, you are imbalanced. You are prepared to do what's next.
Exactly.
You don't get knocked off course. You are in position to defend. You are also in a position to attack. Like all these things happen if you are properly balanced, controlled, and in that. So by getting that done every time, and I tell you, people are always amazed at how come there's not better base stealers in Major League Baseball? Because they don't work at it.
Yeah, right.
Like you have to go every day and work on your footwork, jump rope, study videos, study what pitchers are doing. When can I go? This person's got a little hitch in their arm motion. It's a dead giveaway. They're never coming over by the way they stand on the mound. Like the really great ones really studied it and really had it. And it was never about speed. It's about quickness and execution of really high quality footwork. And when I look at like a guy like Ricky Henderson, right? Like if you watch old videos of Ricky, who's the all-time, best, right?
Yeah.
This guy's at full speed in a step and a half,
Yeah.
right? Because he learned that fundamental footwork that got his balance. Now he's also genetically gifted, right? He's the build, his style, but like I could put 20 guys in Major League Baseball on a line and we could run a 60-yard sprint and he wouldn't win, right? But in 20 yards, he gonna win. He gonna win. Like he is that quick, and because he can get up to his full speed very fast, and it's all in his footwork and balance right from the beginning. And a lot of parents come to me and go, "Oh, you see that guy, Jim? Oh, that kid's gonna be the next Mr. Basketball, blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Oh, really? I don't think so." And they're like, "Well, why don't you think?" I said, "Watch his footwork, right? Like, if you were going to be a great athlete, one of the foundations are great athletes have great footwork." And I'm always reminded of like Big Peyton Manning, right? Like that guy works so hard on footwork, right? And I'm like going, man, you better get that right. So what is that one thing for you? What is that one thing, that fundamental, that foundational item that has to be done with excellence every time? Because if you can't
prep, right? What are my thoughts going to be? And another thing I learned from my college football coach, which I thought was weird at the time, on a Friday before a Saturday game at the next day, visualization, visualize coming events, prepare for them. That's how you are at your best when they come. And that's the 6-inch jab step in a business environment, right? Don't underestimate the importance of any interaction that you have, and you prepare for that. And even the ones that are unexpected, you hear about elevator speeches or whatever. Man, if the CEO walks by and stops you in the hallway and asks you what you're doing, are you prepared? Do you have that ready? Can you encapsulate it in 90 seconds? Right?
Yeah. Many are not. Right?
You got to prepare for those moments. And that to me is how you ensure that you're at your best when you got to be.
Wow. That I'm signing off with that. That's so good, right? Easy. Yeah. Right? Like it's going to take that discipline to know, like, knowing what might happen, what's about to happen next. When we go into those athletic positions, or when we go into the business, either way, an event's going to happen, and what happens when it's your turn? What happens if the ball's hit to you? What happens when they say hike? What happens when this? What happens when you're called to deliver the marketing plan? What's happening? Like anticipate. Not even what's going to happen, but what might happen. Right? And getting ourselves prepared for that. Wow. Absolutely. I love that, Jim. That's so good, man. That's so good.
Cool.
So with that, I'm going to thank Jim Ayres for simple things we can do to, again, just get prepared, be ready. It's so good. So excited to talk about Jessica. And if you do, you definitely pick up that book. Look for Jim online, Jim Ayres. High quality, and he's got a little bit more time, so you're going to want this guy. Coaches people worldwide. He is the 1%. for sure. And now that he's retired from Amway, he's probably got a little bit more time and probably a little bit more choosy about what he might do too. But, like you may qualify. I don't know. You got to ask, right? So, so thankful, Jim. Bless you. Have a great Easter weekend, everybody. And so thankful you could be here with us.
Thank you. Take care.